Brace yourself as we delve into the chilling account of Piggy Palace, a name that still instills fear in the hearts of those who are aware. For those unacquainted, it's advised to proceed with caution, for the darkness that lurks within this narrative is not for the faint of heart. Before we dive into the video, if you're a fan of stories about the darker side of our universe, then do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future uploads. In Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, a man named Robert Pickton emerged onto the scene in 1949. This sinister figure hailed from a place merely 15 miles east of Vancouver, where his origins took root. Growing up alongside his brother and sister, they found themselves in the care of their parents, residing on an expansive pig farm during the tumultuous 1970s. As time wore on, tragedy struck Robert's mother. Louise Helen Pickton passed of cancer. Robert and his brother shouldered the weighty responsibility of tending to the farm's daily affairs, while their sister chose to abandon the tainted legacy left behind. The brothers' efforts to maintain the pig farm proved futile, as its decline set in with an alarming speed. Witnesses, both nearby neighbors and curious visitors, vividly recalled a haunting sight: the remaining pigs wandering freely amidst the decaying property. But even more disconcerting were the brothers themselves, trapped in a state of perpetual neglect. No longer concerned with basic hygiene, they ceased their cleansing rituals, oblivious to the grime and stench that clung to their very beings. And despite trudging through the mire of mud and pig excrement all day, they appeared inseparable from their worn boots, never shedding them even upon entering the confines of their home. Amidst the desolation that befell the Pickton farm, a handful of farm workers persevered, refusing to abandon their posts. Among them was a man named Bill Hiscox, who witnessed firsthand the chilling atmosphere that pervaded the land. In hushed tones, he shared his account, describing the farm as an unsettling realm where darkness thrived. As for Robert Pickton, the very embodiment of peculiarity, Hiscox recounted his encounters with this enigmatic figure. Robert, devoid of vices such as smoking, drinking, or substance abuse, exuded an eerie aura, engaging in inexplicable behavior that defied comprehension. The depths of his unsettling nature seemed to know no bounds. As time wore on, the Pickton brothers grappled with the harsh realization that their destiny did not align with the ancestral path of pig farming that had stretched through generations. Acknowledging their limitations, they made a fateful decision to relinquish portions of their cherished land, opting to sell it off. Little did they anticipate the staggering worth that lay dormant within their property. In the span of 1994 to 1995, a fortuitous turn of events saw them successfully transact almost all of their land to an urban developer, reaping a staggering sum exceeding $5 million. In an instant, these wretched souls, tainted by filth and failure as pig farmers, found themselves elevated to the realm of millionaires. Yet, paralyzed by the weight of their newfound wealth, they found themselves adrift, unsure of how to navigate this uncharted territory. As years passed, marked by inaction and idleness, until a glimmer of conscience spurred them into action. Determined to employ their affluence for good, they established an ostensibly noble venture in 1996, the Piggy Palace Good Times Society, a registered charity. On the surface, the charity's professed purpose was to raise funds for various commendable causes, organizing events such as dances and shows. While this might have initially been their genuine intent, the true nature of the charity soon morphed into something far more sinister. Behind the facade of philanthropy, the brothers employed it as a smokescreen to host debauched gatherings within the very confines of their abandoned slaughterhouse. Though disused due to the cessation of their pig farming endeavors, the slaughterhouse still bore ominous reminders of its dark past. Thick hooks dangled ominously from the ceiling, and bloodstains adorned the ground beneath, testaments to the grim history it bore witness to. The Piggy Palace parties birthed a notorious reputation that reverberated throughout Coquitlam, drawing crowds of up to 2,000 individuals, predominantly consisting of bikers, drug addicts, and prostitutes hailing from the destitute downtown east side of Vancouver. Robert Pickton himself had become intimately acquainted with this forlorn region during his regular visits to a rendering plant where he disposed of animal waste products. With the Piggy Palace charity gaining momentum, Robert ventured back into that very neighborhood, traversing a 10-block stretch known as the Low Track. His purpose was clear: to entice individuals to partake in his lavish parties. However, the recruits he targeted were predominantly downtrodden women, enticed solely by the promises of food, money, drugs, and alcohol. Simultaneously, a haunting pattern began to emerge as women from the downtown east side started vanishing at an alarming rate. Though the disappearances did not escape the attention of those in the community, a deep-seated mistrust of the police and authority figures prevented them from reporting the sinister trend. Yet, as the number of missing women from the downtown east side continued to rise, whispers of a serial killer operating within their midst began to circulate. A palpable sense of fear gripped the residents, forcing them to venture outdoors only in large groups, their senses heightened, wary of any signs of aberration in the neighborhood. Despite their heightened vigilance, women continued to vanish at an alarming pace, leaving the community puzzled and terrified, unable to comprehend the reasons behind these disappearances. When the police were eventually notified about the escalating number of missing women, their response, to put it mildly, was woefully inadequate. In the absence of any tangible evidence or bodies pertaining to the missing women, the police resorted to a disconcerting assumption. They contended that the women themselves were responsible for their own disappearances, implying that their tumultuous lifestyles had finally caught up with them. According to this line of thinking, it was conceivable that they had either fled to undisclosed locations or succumbed to fatal overdoses, with their remains yet to be discovered. However, the residents of the downtown east side vehemently disagreed, asserting that something far more sinister was at play. Despite their pleas and insistence that the situation was different and deeply concerning, the police appeared reluctant to engage. Their stance amounted to a disheartening declaration of non-involvement. When news outlet caught wind of this alarming apathy exhibited by law enforcement, they condemned the police for seemingly deprioritizing the cases of the missing women. Critics accused them of internationally downplaying the urgency of the situation due to the majority of the victims being drug addicts and prostitutes, thus deeming them unworthy of a comprehensive investigation. The police refuted these accusations, refuting any notion of bias or disregard in their approach. In the darkened evening of March 22, 1997, a year had passed since the inception of Piggy Palace and the commencement of its scandalous parties. It had also been a year since the alarming disappearance of numerous women from the downtown east side. On this fateful night, a Pickton neighbor was startled by an urgent knocking on their front door. Hastily responding, they were met with a distressing sight. A woman hunched over, clutching her bleeding abdomen, her wrist adorned with a dangling handcuff. The neighbor's shock was palpable, yet they swiftly ushered the injured woman inside, promptly summoning an ambulance for her aid. Rushed to the hospital, she was swiftly led into emergency surgery. During her recovery, she confided in the attentive nurses, revealing her name as Wendy and recounting a harrowing tale. She had attended one of the infamous Piggy Palace parties, only to find herself targeted by one of the farm's owners, Robert Pickton. His sinister intentions became evident as he attempted to fasten a handcuff onto her wrist. Engaging in a desperate struggle, Wendy was stabbed by Robert, but managed to retrieve the knife and stab Robert in the face before fleeing through the door, finding refuge at the neighbor's residence. Remarkably, Robert Pickton himself arrived at the very same hospital, bearing a severe laceration on his face that bore the unmistakable signs of a stab wound. Alerted by the medical staff, the police promptly responded and conducted a search of Robert's person. To their astonishment, a handcuff key was discovered in one of his pockets, a key that opened the handcuffs that still clung to Wendy's wrist. Armed with this damning evidence, the police wasted no time in arresting Robert on charges of attempted murder. However, while in police custody, Robert brazenly asserted his innocence, adamantly claiming that Wendy's account was nothing more than falsehoods and lies. Providing his account to the police, Robert asserted that Wendy, plagued by drug addiction, had infiltrated one of the Piggy Palace parties with the intention of committing robbery. According to Robert's version of the events, he confronted her, prompting a confrontation that resulted in a struggle wherein both parties sustained knife wounds. Robert attributed his survival to sheer luck. Astonishingly, the police chose to place faith in his narrative, leading them to drop all charges against him, ultimately granting his release. Upon Robert's return to the farm, Bill Hiscox, the sole remaining worker for the Picktons, became increasingly suspicious of his employer. Having familiarized himself with the distressing accounts of the missing woman from the downtown East Side, Bill was aware of Robert's frequent visits to that area, where he would entice women to attend his parties. Bill's intuition relentlessly whispered that something was amiss with Robert. For several months, Bill grappled with this unsettling gut feeling until he reached a breaking point. Determined to take action, he dialed the Crime Stoppers tip line, disclosing his belief that Robert had been the aggressor in the altercation with Wendy, contrary to Robert's claims. Moreover, Bill expressed his conviction that Robert likely bore responsibility for the numerous disappearances of women from the downtown East Side. Bill further shared a crucial piece of information. A recent female guest at the farm had witnessed a collection of women's clothing inside Robert's trailer, accompanied by at least 10 purses and women's identification cards. The police attempted to follow up on this lead by contacting the witness, Lisa. However, consumed by fear of Robert, Lisa refused to cooperate. Consequently, the police lacked the necessary testimony to obtain a search warrant for further investigation. Regrettably, the matter was pushed aside, and the police shifted their focus to other cases. In the following years, the Picktons continued to host their lavish Piggy Palace parties until the city eventually intervened and shut them down. Tragically, dozens more women vanished from the downtown East Side, yet their disappearances did not receive the serious attention of the police. Despite Bill's persistent calls, earnestly asserting that Robert Pickton was the perpetrator behind these unsettling disappearances, his pleas fell on deaf ears. In a significant turn of events, in 2002, a former employee of the Pickton farm approached the police, divulging first-hand knowledge of illicit weapons housed within Robert's trailer. This crucial information served as the catalyst for the police to obtain a search warrant and conduct a raid on the pig farm. In February of that same year, the long-awaited raid unfolded, revealing not only the illegal firearms within Robert's trailer, but also various items directly linked to some of the missing women from the downtown East Side. Following his arrest, Robert was granted bail but placed under surveillance, strictly prohibited from returning to the farm until an extensive search had been conducted. During this meticulous search, investigators uncovered traces of blood from one of the missing women inside Robert's trailer. Consequently, Robert was promptly rearrested and charged with murder while held in custody. Unbeknownst to Robert, his cellmate, whom he regarded as another detainee, was in fact an undercover police officer. Every word exchanged between them was captured on camera. Within this recorded conversation, Robert made several shocking statements, further complicating the unfolding case. In the chilling footage, Robert confesses to the heinous act of murdering 49 individuals, a staggering majority of whom were the missing women from the downtown East Side. Through an extensive investigation, it was determined that Robert's killing spree commenced in 1991, but it escalated significantly in 1996 when he and his brother established Piggy Palace. The extravagant parties hosted at the palace provided him with an opportunity to entice victims to his farm at an accelerated pace. Once the victims arrived at the farm, Robert would lure them into his trailer where he would handcuff them, proclaiming that it was all over. He would then administer fatal doses of antifreeze or strangle them to death. Subsequently, he would transport the victims' bodies to the slaughterhouse, treating them like butchered pigs. A significant portion of their remains was fed to his own pigs. Any remaining body parts that were not consumed by the pigs were transported to the rendering plant in the downtown East Side, conveniently close to where the victims were likely picked up. The rendering plant processed animal waste products, crushing them into a gelatin substance. This gelatin found its way into various everyday products, such as cosmetics and candy. Furthermore, despite this gruesome disposal process, Robert would occasionally set aside prime cuts of meat, blending them with pork to create sausages. These sausages were served at the Piggy Palace parties, distributed to neighbors, food banks, and even orphanages. Following an extensive search of 300,000 cubic meters of soil and pig excrement beneath the Pickton farm, investigators only managed to recover small fragments of remains belonging to 26 women. Robert faced charges for all 26 murders, yet only 6 resulted in convictions due to a lack of concrete evidence. He was sentenced to life imprisonment and remains alive to this day. Notably, his brother and sister were never implicated in connection with this heinous crimes. If you enjoyed the video, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. We post new stories every week covering the darker side of our universe. If you want to see more videos like this, then I highly recommend that you click the video now on screen. That video has been selected specifically for you. Enjoy.